Hey everybody, this is Yarince Pascual Mateo, your host here at Espera Que. Welcome back everybody to Espera Que. I believe this hope that the preceding weeks before this episode haven't been hectic, but 9 out of 10, the next episode will be about how hectic those are. But today, we're going to do something again, like how we had last time with our friend Leno. Today, we have another guest, Mr. B. He is here to talk about our current ongoings about the measles issues happening in Texas and other parts of our country. But before we start going down that rabbit hole, Mr. B, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Yeah, I'm George Bonefalk. I'm a retired neurosurgeon. I grew up in Texas, never expected to leave there. And then we had two sons and they moved away and started having grandkids. So after I'd quit practicing, we kind of moved up here to North Carolina. And then we also divide our time out in Western Colorado, where the other one is. So that's been a real delight for the last few years, kind of being able to participate in them growing up. And enjoying the best of both areas. The moderate winters here and the cool summers out there. So,
yeah, would love to always go to Colorado, but that's in the future.
It's a sweet place. Yeah, absolutely.
But if you don't mind telling us, how is like your background in being in your field? Like, how was it being a doctor back in when you were still practicing?
You know, it was great, and I think it always will be great. There's always issues that people complain about now, and some ones that need to be addressed. I mean, that's where I met Christian is through our advocacy for Medicare for all, because I think we need a rational system like that because of all the myriad problems, including the ones we'll talk about tonight in our healthcare system. But no, when I practiced, things were pretty cool, and a lot of folks said that I retired just about the time things started getting worse with corporate ownership of practices and a lot of employed physicians and things like that. So, but no, it's a very noble profession, and I think I'd recommend anybody get into it if that's their interest. Anytime.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. That's too much reading, too much studying. That's too much for me.
You got to dig it. If you dig it, it's where you are. I did very poorly in college. I barely made it into med school. But once I got to med school, hey, I was there, and it was comparatively easy. It was a lot of work, but I had fun. It's kind of where I wanted to be. So
you just got to be in your element, and
you got to
strive.
You got it.
But here we would like to use your expertise and your history to take some sense of our current time. So, current timeline, as of our recording, we are in March of 2025. We have the Trump presidency happening right now. It just started 2 months ago, and trade war, not trade war, threats, promises of ethnic cleansing, a lot of crazy stuff. One of the crazy things was our resident roadkill lover, RFK Jr., who, mind you, is put in place in charge of pretty much all of our healthcare and all that stuff when he's just a lawyer, which... I mean, as a doctor, as someone who is a doctor and been in this, what do you say about that?
Well, that just by itself is not that much of an indictment. The previous HHS Secretary, Javier Becerra from California, I believe is only a lawyer, and he's been in Congress, and he was Attorney General of California and other kind of things like that. So it's not required that somebody be a doctor to run HHS, or for that reason, the sub-department called CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that makes all these policies about Medicare and Medicaid. So, there's a lot of doctors who are good businessmen and have that kind of sense, but running these big agencies is probably more about your administrative skills than actual medical skills. You got a bunch of medical people beneath you to make those decisions. Wouldn't hurt to have a physician in those roles, but I'd rather have a good administrator, whether he's a physician or a businessman or a lawyer of some sort.
Okay. Well, that changes my mind, because I always thought you would want someone in the medical field, someone who's done that, which makes sense.
Now you don't want somebody who's kind of anti-science, which
that's true.
That's a difference.
Very big thing, but that is a good perspective to see, because that makes sense. Not every doctor is a administrator, and not every administrator has the skills, but they understand the system and they can work together.
There you go.
The issue is our friend. I mean, the only work we have seen him with, like medical work, is a lot of anti-vax movements and stuff.
Right.
Well, before he was fighting against getting mercury out of fishes, which was a noble cause. We shouldn't be having our fish, anybody who eats fish and stuff like that, be poisoned through like toxic stuff by companies. That should be fought. But it's kind of hard when you pivot to anti-vax that has been proven already that is not true. And also, autism isn't a death sentence. Your child isn't going to be ruined. You just give them the support they need. That's it. So, yeah, that's the really annoying hard part. But I would say, with a lot of people, would you say, is there any medical knowledge or information that we should trust from him? I mean, there's the anti-vax thing. That should be enough, but
I don't know, that should kind of just turn you off completely, shouldn't it? On the other hand, he does have, I don't know how legitimate it is, but some interest in dealing with chronic diseases, and like you said, getting rid of the mercury and some of these other things. Those are all noble things too, but not to be done at the expense of throwing vaccines under the bus. So, you can't disregard every single thing he said. For example, we've been fighting this thing about a national healthcare system for decades, and the conservatives, the Republicans, have been resisting it at every turn. Well, so here's an opportunity where we could improve healthcare for everybody and save a cajillion dollars and cut down the size of government. So wouldn't it just be incredible if a conservative Republican administration leads us towards a national healthcare thing? That would almost excuse everything else they do that's kind of crazy. Almost. I qualified that. That's right. So, so who knows? So you can't just reject him out of hand with everything he says. I think you can probably reject a good portion of what he says, but he does have some thoughts that we can get on board with.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up to our break. When we come back, we're going to start on with our current measles outbreak, which, funny enough, not going to lie, 25 years on this earth, amazed I have seen a couple measles outbreaks. Just lucky enough it wasn't near me, but okay. Well, see you next time. Well, thank you everybody for listening to Espera Que. Thank you for being here for me. I'm your host, Yarince Pascual Mateo. I hope you are listening to us here in any of our major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever. Hope y'all have a wonderful day, and hey, let's survive this 2025.
Bye, y'all. Hey everyone, this is Christian and Jenny from the Coffee and Pandusi Show. We hope you're enjoying Espera Que with Yarince. It's a great show. Also, I want to remind you to join our show as well, Coffee and Pandusi, every Wednesday at 10 o'clock on your favorite podcast platform, and Jenny's show, Two Queers in a Truck.
Absolutely.
Every Wednesday at 11:30.
2025 is our 2025. If I can get it out right without sounding like I'm we've got two wonderful shows that have joined the family of shows that we've done for 6 to 8 seasons. And Yarince is a wonderful host, who's a wonderful guest host with coffee, and a wonderful young man with a lot of great vision and insight. Looking forward to seeing his episodes flourish. And as always, thanks for listening. Otherwise, Christian and I would be just talking to ourselves.
That's right, and we do.
We do. Doesn't keep us from doing that now.
That's right. Enjoy the show, y'all. Bye.
Hello, everybody. This is your host, Yarince Pascual Mateo of the show Espera Que. We're going to have a long, crazy year. Welcome back, everybody. It's me and Mr. B back here talking about, and here we're going with our measles outbreak. As of, I believe, March 12th, we know that there is at least 200 confirmed cases. Most of them spread out between the Texas and New Mexico area near that border they share, which sadly there has been reports of a kid, I believe, dying. All I know is for certainly there's only one death. There could be more, which is disheartening, very disheartening, but it's just wild we have measles because, like, when I was growing up, I was known this was eradicated. We were done with it. Obviously, there is measles out in the world. That's how it came to here. Someone was out traveling. They accidentally caught it because they didn't have the vaccine or anything like that. Brought it over here, spread it around to a bunch of people, and then when they finally caught, there's an issue. That's pretty much how all viruses work. We saw this happen during COVID-19. It's just that with measles, we had so much protections, especially in one of the richest nations in the world. Like, our health system sucks, but I'm not going to lie. They still make a couple billion each year everywhere else. Not that. So, yeah. But, it does happen. So, Dr. V, I would say, like, how does we know that how one person comes in, spread it, that does happen and stuff like that. But is it, how would I respond? Explain this question? When it comes to a measles outbreak and stuff like that, do you know how they deal with like containing it and making sure like things doesn't spread as much?
Yeah. Well, similar to COVID, but a little bit different. It's not necessarily about air droplets or whatever, but similar to a lot of viruses, the measles is extraordinarily contagious. And back before you were born, it was the notion, oh, everybody has measles. It was just kind of so common, and most cases are very mild. It's kind of like you have a little cold and a fever or something, and maybe you have a little rash, you get over it. But the hooker is that 1 or 2 out of every 1,000 would die, and a few more would kind of have, some encephalitis, brain inflammation, and affect different other body systems. So it's not benign. It's not something to be ignored. As far as how to contain it, the answer is vaccination. And the reason we haven't had any outbreaks is because we've had such a high vaccination rate. And I think you probably, and most of your viewers are probably aware that where this outbreak occurred in West Texas was in a community of a religious group that tends not to believe in vaccinations. I mean, those have been around forever. We've had the Christian Scientists who didn't believe in medical care. They would pray over, people, and there have been all sorts of issues about
couple groups.
Can you hold them responsible? Yeah, all that. So the virus kind of found a vulnerable population in this group, and it largely only spreads to folks who haven't been vaccinated. I guess if you have been vaccinated, you can get a mild case, but like COVID, but you're probably not going to die from it. So I don't think there's any public health measures other than vaccination. Like, I don't think that social distancing and wearing a mask and the things that we got very familiar with COVID, I don't think those really kind of play a role with measles. I think the bottom line is you got to get vaccinated. And that's what's so disappointing when you hear RFK Jr. kind of say, well, I had my kids vaccinated, mind you, but it's a personal decision, so y'all can decide for yourselves. And if people are balancing that tentative recommendation versus their religious or philosophical group kind of saying, oh, vaccines are terrible, and we ought to have natural immunity and believe in our natural ability to get over things, that's when people will kind of go towards the unvaccinated side, and next thing you know, we got an outbreak like this.
Well, some people, whenever it comes to being against vaccines and stuff like that, I heard that some of them say like vitamin A therapy as like a replacement or something, which
right. I'm glad you brought that up. It seems that I'm not a pediatrician. I never treated anybody with measles, but from my reading, it seems that just like when you had COVID, particularly us old folks who were more susceptible, there's this medicine that came along called Paxlovid. It did not cure COVID, but it made your case a lot milder. It helped it. It made it easier for you to recover, since there's no antibiotic for a viral infection like that. So vitamin A seems to be that, to a degree, for measles infections. And most of these children that are in the hospital in West Texas, they're probably on vitamin A treatment. So a lot of folks who aren't scientists kind of hear that and say, oh, I need to take vitamin A and maybe I won't get the measles and I don't need a vaccine. That's absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
That's like saying if you don't have, water in your car, but you have gas, you can still kind of go. Well, it doesn't kind of work that way. So unfortunately, that's where this vitamin A thing came up. And I think it's kind of amusing that there seems to be a lot of vitamin A in cod liver oil. So you probably heard or read some things about people saying, well, we don't need the vaccine, just force cod liver oil down your kids' throats. And the rationale for that is they think that vitamin A is going to protect them. So that's where that all came from. I think it's kind of not very worthwhile information. But that's the basis of that, from my understanding.
Nah, it's just I don't understand. Like I see that they understand the issues of the sickness. They understand. I see that they see what's going on, and it is painful and harmful to their kids. But it's just that is like in your experience, or if anyone you speak, like what really makes them believe like vaccines aren't safe? Because all I know of is just like either it's like the companies want to make money, which that is a valid thing to say, but vaccines are so vital for human like survival. Ever since the introduction of this, our lives like literally exponentially grown because of this and many other technologies. Like it is so vital that if it's more profitable for it to work and be perfect than have crappy ones that causes issues. Like that's more expensive and a lot more people will die. So what other factors would cause someone to just not trust them?
Well, and for the record, most of these early vaccines and even the COVID vaccine are developed by governmental agencies or under contract to these pharmacy companies. It's not the pharmacy companies themselves just kind of going out and doing this, because it's very expensive. But what makes people believe that? Well, people have all sorts of notions, and there's loss of trust in government, loss of trust in science in general. Science has kind of made all sorts of promises about, we're going to cure cancer and we're going to do all these kind of things, and these are tough problems, and they haven't come along, and people are suspicious. If you go back to this crazy movie that again probably came out before you were born, called Dr. Strangelove. There's one of these crazy military guys who talks about his precious bodily fluids, and people don't want any foreign substances. Look around right now. Utah as a state is about to ban putting fluoride in their water supply. Fluoride's been one of the greatest public health benefits, along with vaccines, for cutting out cavities in kids. And so now people are worried, you're forcing medicine on me, and I don't want to put this substance in my body, that some government agencies kind of telling me to do. So it's largely paranoia and loss of faith in governmental authority and science and these kind of pop psychology kind of cultures. It's a multifactorial thing. It's easy to kind of say these people are just ignorant and stupid. They have a different belief system. And, as Christian said, bless their hearts. It's unfortunate because their belief systems are ending up hurting them and a lot of people around them. But, that's what we have. So there's several reasons for folks being vaccine resistant. I frankly don't know why RFK Jr. is anti-vaccine. He clearly, at some level in his body, believes that there may be a link between vaccines and autism. So he's calling for new research in that, even though that's been put to bed for a long time. The
doctor who did that research lost his license and was barred from ever doing any more research.
I'm glad you know that. That's exactly right. But, I don't know why we have to reinvent the wheel. I guess to have Trump's, stamp on it or something. So maybe more people will believe it. I don't know. It's sad, but whatever.
It's just wild because, again, like, I know this seems like we're just talking up vaccines and like, this is the best. Like, here's the thing. Yes, it is a personal choice, but here's the thing. A personal choice usually don't affect other people. Whenever you do something to your hair or your body or whatever, if you're doing it willingly and this is safe and protected to you and harms no one else, that's perfectly fine. The issue with vaccines is it's literally a system that only works when all of us work together with this. This is literally a thing for all of humanity because all of us are humans and all of us will be eradicated by one pesky bacteria if we don't protect ourselves. And guess what? Not everyone has the resources. Not everyone has all the money. Not everyone has everything. So if you live somewhere that is seemed to be one of the richest places in the world, when you live somewhere where you have a lot of privileges, like get access to water, get access to decent schools, get access to internet, get access to all this stuff, I'm not going to lie, a vaccine is very, very minimal something to do, like your civic duty, because not a lot of people, not everybody can take a vaccine. Not everyone's healthy enough for a vaccine because a vaccine is just a weaker strain of the virus, and it's just teaching our immune system, hey, be aware of this so you are 10 times better. So people saying you want natural immunity, this is literally how we get natural immunity. Yes, we humans kind of put it into a lab, but we're part of nature. We're animals too. This is pretty natural. We're just moving it along so we don't have to wait for it to come out of nowhere. We can just do it. I mean, be proud of your human. That's all I'm saying. It's just that vaccines is something we need because for those who can't get it and for those who are vulnerable to this, like, because here's the thing, it's called empathy. I actually kind of care about other people because if I care about other people, they help me, and it's very beneficial. And it's very heartening to just be selfish for this. So understand, when it comes to vaccines, this is literally just a invisible shield for us to put up against things that can eradicate us very easily. And it's better for all of us to work together and do our duty to just protect one another than just be upset that something evil is in there. But that's paranoia. That's all the things. Not everybody have the information. People keep on hearing the same line over and over again that it became the truth. That's understandable, but we're getting to a point that now needs to change like quickly. Other than that, we're coming up to our last break. When we come back, I would say we will just finish up to talk about any futures and what we can think about and do about this new measles outbreak and other interesting things about this whole situation, and end the day with a good note. Other than that, see you in the next one. Thank you, everybody, for watching our show. Listening if you're on our major podcast platforms on Spotify and Apple. I'm your host, Yarince Pascual Mateo. Thank you so much for enjoying hearing my annoying voice, and hope you'll have a wonderful 2025. It's going to be a long one.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Hey, everyone. I hope you're enjoying Espera Que with Yarince, and I apologize for stumbling over the name. It's the first time that I've talked about the show, and I'm excited to talk about it as we are offering, and you will see on our media pages, we're adding a lot of new shows that have nothing to do with me, but I'm here to talk about it because I'm kind of the company's spokesperson, I guess, or mascot, depending on the day. But anyway, it's a new, exciting, hip new show. I don't know if the kids use the word hip, but I do because I'm old. And anyway, it's getting the Latin Hispanic perspective, but from somebody much younger, from a Gen Z participant that is a young activist in our community. And Yarince's been on many of our shows in the Two Queers and Coffee family. And we look forward to hearing his opinions and thoughts. And I find this show probably one of the most interesting new shows. So check it out. It's available on our family of networks. And just like Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, as normal, all the same bat channels and all the same bat times. Come find us on Wednesday. There's something to watch every week. Anyway, thanks for listening as always, and we'll see you next week.
Hey everybody, this is Yarince Pascual Mateo, your host of Espera Que. Well, I hope y'all are having a good start of your 2025 because we're going to have a fun, long year listening to the news. Okay, welcome back everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. Either way, to finalize our show today, one thing, we were doing a little bit of research and figuring out some things, and as a lot of people know, I am Afro-Latino. I'm a Latino male. We actually wanted to do this show to entice other Latino males to just speak up and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm open to everybody. But one thing we see is like a little drop on our demographic about not being, because the averages would be around like 82 or higher 70s, 80s. Truthfully, it should be more beneficial if most of us were like in the 90s. In the national average is around like national average is around 72, 73%, with the higher states are in the 80s, while the lower states are in like the 60s and some in the 50s, which, yeah, that's scary. But in some of the research, we saw that there is a lot of young Latino men not getting vaccinations. Now, me as my own self, I would believe it's just because we're being lazy. Like I myself am lazy sometimes, and I wouldn't be surprised some of my brethren are lazy as well. But Dr. B, do you have any idea of like any hesitation, like in younger groups or other groups? Like, do you have any idea like what makes certain like groups not have a higher vaccination percentage, or is just like all across the board? It just depends on education.
Yeah, I think there's stuff that just kind of goes through all groups. I don't know that there's a real strong cultural change in the different generations, pro or con. I'm optimistic about the younger generations that they're.
Yeah.
I heard the other day that they have a lower incidence of smoking and alcohol drinking, and maybe drugs in general. It's like great, finally woke up. So maybe they'll be more receptive to science and whatnot. I don't see any huge shift in a particular generation.
That's how it goes, because in our generation, and I would say Gen Z myself, a lot of us, we lived through a pandemic. Some of us old enough to remember like older siblings dealing with the whole entire financial crash and stuff like that. We just went through literally 2 presidencies right now. Like me, I've been through Obama, Biden, Trump. Like those are my only 3 presidents. And I'm not going to lie, like me knowing Obama and seeing what's happening since like Trump started is just,
hard to imagine, isn't it?
Hard to imagine. And the younger ones, they don't even know anything like that. So they have a lot of loss of trust in government and authorities. But there's been a lot of uptick in like STEM and education, science, which is pretty useful, because it's happy to know that at least a lot of us are not going into that trap of vaccines or, autism and all that stuff. I mean, there are still not every single person born in the same generation think and act the exact same, just that there will be some groups of people who are just like, this is how they grew up, or they got bad information, or they're just pig-headed. Like some people are just pig-headed. That's how it is. But a lot of us are trusting the science. And it's very helpful. It's just unsettling to see like older generations dealing with this, or older generations just showing too much apathy or anything like that. And even in our younger generation, there is some apathy. So I just want to say is like, with this future we have, is there anything the younger generation can take away from like how to deal with these situations, or how to deal with like this whole, with like the erasure of trust in science, or in this case, like people anti-vaxxing?
Yeah. Well, it's the old business of you have to get yourself fundamentally educated about kind of what is science and how are experiments done, and how whether to believe what you read and stuff like that. That's not saying everybody needs to become an expert in these things, but some understanding of how science works. And then it's a matter of, not believing everything you hear. When I was growing up, it said, seeing is believing. Well, now that's gone out the window with all the AI, and you look at something, you don't know if it's real or not. But still, with a little bit of effort, you can find stuff out. I was so heartbroken during the COVID thing when my sister, who's very intelligent, would send me these articles about these crazy cures that somebody's come up with for COVID. And like, what do you think of this? And it's like, well, I think it's freaking nuts. And why didn't you figure that out? Well, I just sent it to you. I didn't want to check it myself. Well, check it yourself. And you see something on TikTok or on one of these internet kind of things that sounds preposterous, it's probably preposterous. So look into it. Google a little bit. Say what you want. Wikipedia, I love Wikipedia because it's so lower D democratic. Everybody can contribute. And if there's an error in it, somebody corrects it. So it's not a distorted one ideology kind of running this information source. Get your medical information from Mayo Clinic and Johns Hopkins website, not Dr. Oz, for example. So it's just a matter of of spending a few moments to check your information and be informed, and don't believe everything you see and hear, and just be responsible,
Yeah. Well, thank you for that wonderful message at the end there. Want to thank you, Dr. B, for coming on to our show and giving us such insightful information and helping us understand this hectic time. Thank you for showing us and enlightening us with new views and ideas. And to everybody listening, thank you again for coming to listen to us in Espera Que. Hope y'all had a wonderful time listening to us. See y'all next Thursday, and hope y'all have a wonderful night. See you. Bye. Thank you, everybody, for coming in here to listening to our episode to Espera Que, where we interviewed Dr. B. I wanted to thank him again for coming on and telling us so much information and giving us a lot of stuff to chew on while we go through these harrowing and annoying times. Hope everybody have a wonderful week and keep on surviving. Hey everybody, thank you so much for being at our show today. I hope you had fun watching it on YouTube or listening to it on Spotify or in any major podcast platforms. Thank you for listening to our show. I am your host, Yarince Pascual Mateo, and I hope y'all have a wonderful 2025, because it's going to be a long one.
My light technician, get a little better light.
Okay.
Okay, so welcome to Espera Que. Hope y'all had a good
And once
week.
again, this date is March 20th that they'll be watching this.
March 20th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, we ready?
You ready, Dr. B?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, so this is March 20th.
Good job. Good job. All right. When we come back, let's go ahead and talk about the measles outbreak and what your thoughts are. I know it's kind of, or I don't know. I guess Dr. B, you can kind of clarify. It's like West Texas, New Mexico, but it's also in some other areas.
It's popping up here and there. Yeah.
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 Okay.
So West Texas, New Mexico, near that border area.
That's a big deal. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Whenever you want to come back.
Okay.
Good job. Good job. I don't know if you guys want to touch on this last segment. We're only about 9 minutes left. About young men. I mean, I don't know, Yarince, do you think there's a hesitation with young men in your generation? I hate to sound like, your generation, young men. I mean, I know, like my generation, Gen Xers, that seems like where the anti-vaxxer movement kind of thrives in the Gen X generation.
I do not know, because most of the anti-vax rhetoric I heard was from like older people. No one in my
That's
age
what I think too. That's what I think too. Yeah. So I don't know if you want. I don't know if you want to touch on that. That hopefully we've gone over the worst part of the anti-vax movement. Because it seemed like it's really peaked with the Gen X generation, my generation. And which right now are grandparents, and luckily it's a small generation. But it seems like the millennials and the Zs tend to be embracing vaccinations. I don't know if we have any data on
just
that.
lived through a pandemic, and we kind of learned pretty quick how useful it was.
Okay, all right. So whatever you want to talk about, we got about 8 minutes left. So go ahead and come back.
Okay.
Stay put, y'all.